preparing for this presentation, I just kind of took a look back at 2010 and identified the 5 major movements that they're still playing out and they're going to have the biggest impact on that content production sector of the industry next year. So the first thing that I identified, is 3D TV. So obviously the kids television industry is not as cutting edge as some of the other sectors that are looking at this technological development. But we are there, we're in the mix, and obviously there are technological issues that that need to be sorted out, and concerns about the health of too much 3D viewing for children. But in the meantime, a whole generation of young people is growing up with 3D really being the norm as far as watching movies goes. I mean, I can't remember. I've got a 5-year-old daughter. I can't remember the last time we went to a movie that wasn't 3D. So that is very much a way of life for her and for a lot of the kids that she's growing up with. And sooner or later, they are going to be wanting to have that experience replicated in the living room. So so our content producers are very much trying to keep up with that and figure out the production cycles and what the parameters are of the technology and how they manage their work.
Isn't it really that much more expensive to make a 3D?
It's actually not. It's quite manageable. I think they're surprised by finding that it's quite comparable with the high-end work that they were already doing. Obviously, it doesn't compare to some of the cheaper 2D animation, but the 3D CGI stuff that they're already doing, it's very comparable.
Caitlyn, what do you think about 3D?
I
All right, keep going.
Okay. So, I mean, when I'm looking at the people who are at the forefront of identifying trends, I always come back to Disney, because Disney hasn't missed a trend in the last 10 to 15 years. So the true barometer for me that 3D is coming, it's a reality, it's something that my industry has to get ready for, is that Disney's releasing 15 of its kids classics and some of its newer releases on Blu-ray 3D next year. That's just such a huge signpost that that it's time. We've got to get serious about it. And as a result, my industry, like I said, is responding. There's currently about 50 stereoscopic 3D TV series projects that are currently in development and early production. So we should start to see those starting to hit the market at any rate in 2012, later in the year, and 2013 and 2014 will be big watershed years for those types of projects. Now, as to whether they'll have broadcast platforms that pick them up and broadcast them, we'll have to see. But the content is out there, and it's going to come to fruition in the next couple of years. So that's good news.
Caitlyn, what do you think about Jocelyn's hair?
It's pretty.
Isn't it like the coolest hair in the world? No, I'm sorry. I'm in so much trouble, but I just think it's fun to just pretend I think that's really cool. All right, so. Next.
Okay, so the next thing that we've kind of already touched on is transmedia production, transmedia brand planning, and I know that Reyne is going to talk about it from her consumer products and toy perspective as well. But it is really exciting, and it's not a new concept. I mean, cross-platform, multi-platform, cross-media, transmedia, all basically means the same thing, and it's about telling stories across a lot of platforms in a cohesive and interconnected way, and having the kids discover the stories in whatever medium they happen to be in at that particular time. What is new is that it's being embraced really wholeheartedly right now by virtually all of the content leaders, and legitimized as well. For example, earlier in the year, the Producers Guild of America has recognized it as an official craft with the creation of a new transmedia producer credit. And the way I understand it, they almost never ratify new credits. So that was a really big step in giving transmedia a legitimate boost in the industry. And now, I think virtually all of the Hollywood studios have either set up their own in-house teams or routinely bringing in outside consultants to put together transmedia strategies and blueprints for all of their biggest movies and franchises. So it's definitely happening in a widespread way at the upper levels of the content industry, and it's starting to trickle down into the kids' entertainment and content area as well. I think we can continue to see that in 2011. I think what's great about it is it leads to more engaging properties that are touching on our kids in every aspect of their lives. Unfortunately, it probably makes more pressure on us as parents as well, because there's going to be more demand for product and we're going to have to shell out for it, but that's not a bad thing if, if kids are engaging in the content that they come into contact with in a deep way, I think. So that's number 4. Number 3 is the interrelation between web TV and social networking. We're starting to see some kids' sites, this is a relatively new one, but some kids' websites with deep and massive reach. They're starting to roll out VOD services that have built-in social networking features and functionality. So basically they're kind of like avatar-based virtual living rooms, and kids can watch their favorite shows on demand, so they get to see what they want, when they want. At the same time, they can socialize with other kids who are watching the same shows. So they're built with functionality like chat, polls, rating systems, just basically getting dialogue happening between the kids that are watching a particular show at the same time on these sites. It's actually, if you think about it, that's a more fun way to view television, at least from my perspective. It's a bit more engaging. It makes you feel like you're part of sort of a global audience, and it's not quite so isolated as just watching TV alone in your living room. And I'm sure that some of the bigger broadcasters, the traditional broadcasters, are watching that space very, very closely, because it could be the way of the future. And if they're not there, they might get left behind a little bit, or at least get stuck behind the 8 ball and have to catch up rather quickly. One forerunner that we're watching in the UK is a site called Bin Weevils. They've acquired almost 200 hours of hit content from Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, and are building a whole content portfolio with other half hours from independent producers and suppliers. So we're watching to see, sort of how their product is developing quite closely. And then another one called Moshi Monsters in the US. They've got it's a website that has about 30 million unique users, and they claim that they add a new one every second. I'm not sure whether that's real or not, but that's their claim. And they're rolling out a very similar type of platform next year. So we're going to be watching that space very carefully as well.
Caitlyn, are Moshi Monsters, any of those? You ever go on those?
No, but I
Okay, cool.
Okay. Next one. Okay, so basically the power player in my industry are the traditional broadcasters, and specifically the U.S. ones, because they sort of determine what the broadcasting strategies are around the world, and everyone else responds to what they do. So there's been a ton of change in that U.S. kids broadcasting landscape, and it's having a big impact on the types of content that that the producers are putting out there. So to just go through them really quickly, Disney last year launched its XD channel brand, basically aiming to replicate the success that it's had with tween girls, with programming like Hannah Montana, which is Waverly Place, but replicating it for a boy experience. So that's a major focus for that channel brand right now, and it's also focusing on its preschool programming, because it's about to launch Disney Junior. So we've got tween and preschool. Cartoon Network last year aged up its rather boy-skewing programming with a little bit of an edgier lineup of shows that really takes it beyond its animation roots. So again, you've got another of the major broadcasters focusing on the tween demographic. Nickelodeon as well is trying to challenge Disney on that tween girlfriend, so it's putting a lot of its development funding into that type of programming, as well as its preschool stuff, because Nickelodeon is always really strong on the junior side of its brand. So basically, you've got all three chasing tweens and preschool, and that kind of leaves a gap in the middle. And that's where we are hoping that a new broadcaster called The Hub is going to step in and fill the gap. So The Hub launched in October. They are focusing specifically on that 6 to 9 demographic and trying to program a lot of co-viewing opportunities for families to watch with their kids. Granted, they're coming from the dark horse position because their penetration and their ability to reach into living rooms is limited, but they're growing with new households, and their ratings have been quite strong so far. So we're going to be watching them very closely in 2011 to see what kind of gains they can make.